Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely foundational, a truly fascinating, objective exploration of the four main pillars of the Christian faith. Whether you're a hardcore theology buff or just kind of curious about the historical bedrock of one of the world's largest belief systems, we're going to unpack the story of Jesus Christ looking strictly at the biblical texts. We'll see how this narrative comes together and why it matters so incredibly much to the faith.
Okay, let's dive into this chronological roadmap. We're going to cover the Christian foundation, the incarnation, the crucifixion, the resurrection, and finally, the ascension.
Let's start right at section 1, the Christian foundation, the bedrock of faith.
So, the story of Jesus Christ is essentially the central narrative of his birth, life, death, and resurrection. According to the source material, this specific collection of events is literally the absolute foundation that all of Christianity is built on. It's not just a standard biography, Christian theology views these connected events as a massive demonstration of God's love, showing an active desire to reconcile humanity to himself. Honestly, wrapping your head around this overarching narrative is absolutely crucial to understanding the faith as a whole system.
Moving right along to section 2, the incarnation, the human experience begins.
This is where the timeline actually kicks off, his birth. Now, the whole concept of the incarnation goes way, way back to ancient texts. Specifically, the book of Isaiah, chapter 7, verse 14 says, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel." This prophecy is super important because it anchors the Christian belief that this miraculous birth wasn't just some random surprise. It was deliberately foretold long in advance by the prophets.
Breaking down the theology here, it asserts that Jesus was born to a virgin named Mary, having been conceived by the Holy Spirit. And what's really fascinating for us as focused learners is how this ancient event is hardwired into our modern world today. This exact moment of incarnation, it's what the entire globe celebrates on December 25th, Christmas Day. So every single time you see Christmas festivities, you are literally looking at a direct, modern reflection of this very first foundational pillar.
Which brings us to section 3, the crucifixion, the sacrifice.
We're shifting to a much more solemn part of the narrative now. Let's walk through the historical sequence exactly as the biblical texts lay it out. Step 1, Jesus was arrested. Step 2, he was put on trial by Pontius Pilate, who was the Roman governor of Judea at the time. Step 3, he was sentenced to death. And step 4, he was crucified on a cross just outside the city walls of Jerusalem. So the crucial point is that Christian theology doesn't just see this as a standard Roman execution. According to the faith, this was a deliberate, profound spiritual sacrifice, a required payment specifically made for the sins of all humanity.
And that takes us to section 4, the resurrection, rising from the dead.
Stepping out of the darkness of the crucifixion, the narrative suddenly gets this renewed, triumphant energy. In fact, the source texts explicitly call this the single most important event of the whole story. And it all revolves around the number 3. According to the Bible, on the exact third day after the crucifixion, there was a shocking discovery. Jesus' tomb was completely empty. And not just that, the text states he then appeared physically to his disciples, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that he had risen from the dead.
Now, what's really interesting to consider here is the powerful theological juxtaposition. You have a mortal end in physical death, completely contrasted with the ultimate overcoming of that end, literally rising from the dead. For Christians, this triumph over death is way more than just an inspiring miracle. It's viewed as the ultimate demonstration of his power over death itself and absolute proof of his divinity. Honestly, it's the theological hinge that the entire Christian faith turns on.
Finally, we arrive at section 5, the ascension, return to heaven. This represents the theological culmination of Jesus' earthly journey. 40 days. That's the strict timeline we're looking at for this final step. The source material tells us that exactly 40 days after rising from the dead, Jesus ascended directly into heaven, right in front of his disciples. And just like the incarnation is tied to Christmas, this event has its own massive observable legacy today. Millions of people around the globe still celebrate this as Ascension Day, which is faithfully observed exactly 40 days after Easter.
And this brilliantly illustrates the complete narrative arc we've been tracking together. We've got 4 distinct chronological stepping stones, starting with day 1, the birth or incarnation, then moving to the day of death, the crucifixion, then that pivotal third day after death, the resurrection, and wrapping up on the 40th day after the resurrection with the ascension. Together, these four pillars just seamlessly click into place to form the complete theological foundation of Christianity.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to really think about. How do these four profound events continue to provide hope, comfort, and meaning to literally millions of people around the world today? Whether you're looking at this through the lens of personal faith, historical analysis, or even cultural sociology, you can't deny the immense, ongoing global impact of this narrative. It's a story that has shaped centuries of human history and still resonates just as strongly right now. I highly encourage you to keep digging into the deep history and rich theology behind these texts to really grasp their monumental significance. Thanks so much for hanging out and breaking this down with me, and as always, keep learning.